My wife and I had been involved in the parent organization, the Trinity Forum, and which is about working with leaders. And the idea is contributing to the transformation and renewal of society, to the transformation and renewal of leaders. But we became increasingly convinced that working with leaders that were at the full stride in their careers, or even beginning to throttle back, though it was very fun and exciting and meaningful working with them, that you really weren't going to change much in society. You needed to work with people when they were starting their careers. And you really needed to work with them in that formative time in their 20s, when they're really either just about to do their final professional training, law school, med school, business school, whatever, or in some instances, probably about 1 out of 5 of our students has finished a master's and maybe finished everything but their dissertation for their PhD. And because there's a recognition that to take this kind of 9 months out, if you finish graduate school, you're not going to do it then, because part of the investment you're making in grad school is the networking opportunities, and it looks like a real hole in your resume. What'd you do for a year? Whereas doing it, maybe our ideal fellow is someone that's been, they're 24 to 26. So they've been out a few years. We find they're therefore more intentional as to why they want to be here, a little more mature, and they come here more purposeful. So a group of us had met and began to talk and pray about what could we do to put together a program that would really work with young people just as they're about to start out in their careers, and really affect things for them, offer them both to challenge them to take, as we call it, a time apart for a lifetime of engagement, but it's also how you engage. It's learning to be creative thinkers and to bring solutions, which aren't, there aren't solutions that solve problems, but they're solutions that do make a difference. And I say don't solve problems because most of our major problems, they aren't going to just go away with some program. But you've got to have patience, you've got to have perseverance, and you've got to be creative. And one of the things we really feel is that many followers of Jesus, they're not creative enough in exercising kind of the opportunities and the insights that they have. And we need creative thinking that is realistic in the sense of that both understands individuals are capable of wonderful acts of kindness and goodness, but they're also capable of incredible cruelty. And we have to be, therefore, we're hopeful on the one hand of what people can be like, but we've also got to be realistic, and we can't be naive. One of the things I've seen from my own experience and with many leaders, many very skilled leaders then spectacularly crash and burn. And you wonder, why do they crash and burn? And what you often see is, as you're successful in a career field, people gather around you telling you how great you are, how good you are, how successful you are. And you can't help but believe that. And what happens is, rather than seeing the areas where you need to grow and you need to change, you tend to focus just on the areas where everything's great and everybody thinks you're terrific. But you get undone by the things, character traits, things that you've just ignored because you are having such success in exercising, quote, your gifts or your talents. And we really, we're about teaching servant leadership, and we're also about, we understand that you're super bright, otherwise you wouldn't be here, that you're already recognized to be very, very talented and somebody that's really going to be impactful in whatever career you go into. But in that field, you're going to get a lot of praise. You're going to have a lot of people saying, wow, you are fantastic. You are terrific. How are you going to deal with that? How are you not going to have, to put it somewhat crassly, how are you not going to have that power or that acclaim corrupt you? Yeah. And we're about building leaders for life, not just for the short sprint. First and foremost, I think we can be both hopeful and realistic at the same time. And a lot of that has to do with how one understands human nature. Hopeful in that we believe every individual, whether they acknowledge it or not, is created in the image of God and therefore is capable of loving acts, kind acts, coming up with new ideas that no one else has thought before, new approaches to things, but also realistic. Realistic in that at the same time, people are sinners, every one of us, and the ones we know best are ourselves. But what that means is every, quote, solution is flawed, and that indeed, because every program or solution is going to be implemented by people, that means it's always going to be flawed, and you're always having to self-correct and improve. And so no one's going to come as a knight on a white horse and suddenly be the perfect answer for what we need politically. No war on poverty is going to ever totally wipe out poverty. But that doesn't mean that one should be either cynical or apathetic. What we do does make a difference. And I think that, but the understanding, in other words, I think oftentimes people tend to be both romantically idealistic about social solutions, or on the other hand, they're what I'd call almost in a deterministic way, very pessimistic. We would reject both of those. I know rumors spread as to what exactly is going on at this property and so forth. So I think our desire is for the community to know about what we're doing here. We'd like to engage more of the community. We have Friends of the Academy, and Friends of the Academy are a number of folks that live basically primarily, almost all in Talbot County, who give a small amount financially, get invited to different events, come hear different speakers and so forth, come meet the fellows. Then we modeled really on my experience with the Naval Academy, we have host families. So that all the fellows, because this is a pretty intense program, as the Naval Academy is a very intense experience. So there are times when you really like to, be able to go to somebody's home and sort of be spoiled and have a home-cooked meal, and in this case, too, have an older couple that, and so all the fellows have host families here locally. Many of those relationships then continue on they're invited to their weddings and to their, getting their PhDs and so on and so forth. We're not about espousing any particular ideology. We're not trying to train people to go out and sort of lead some ideological movement. And we're not about numbers. In a society that's all caught up with numbers, we really believe that 10 to 14 fellows is just about the right number to have the intimate, accountable type community where people feel comfortable opening up, being honest about not just where they're talented, but the things that might pull them down, the things that they have self-doubts about.